Hello and welcome back to another episode of Thriving. I'm Lerato Mahlasela, mosetsana wa lerapo la phala e reng e tlola tsela go sale le go lefela o tla mpona ke ile. So excited to be recording another episode and being in conversation with Dr. Sarah Babb. And as you know, I want to make sure I read intros properly. So I'm going to be looking down for a bit and then we'll get to chat a bit about her. She's an adjunct faculty here at GIBS and also a professional associate and has over 25 years work experience where she's led many exciting, impactful change management programs, from scenarios projects to national skills programs to organizational culture change to the human side of digital transformation. And we all know that the more the world goes digital, it actually needs to be more human. The common theme being leading change through complexity. She brings her real-world experience to academic experience of research, teaching, and publishing together in her passion to help leaders to step up and forge positive futures for our continent. Sarah works each day across sectors and countries, building inclusive workplaces, and we'll hear a bit more about that later, where all can thrive. This includes engaging with neurodiversity in the workplace. She's published widely on change, on leadership development, and organizational development. She's a highly rated lecturer, presenter, and facilitator and coach. She loves developing high-impact programs and change interventions. Sarah, welcome to Thriving.
Thank you.
How are you?
Thriving, enjoying being here and the conversations
Lovely.
About how do we thrive in this world.
In this world, yeah, which can sometimes be a bit challenging, right?
So much complexity and turbulence and unpredictability, and exactly the question of how do we connect with who we are and connect with each other so that we can thrive.
We can thrive because it's possible, right?
Exactly.
How do you define it though? If I were to wake you up at 2 a.m. and say, what is thriving? Yeah.
Thriving for me is being able to know that there's always more.
Sure.
So the world is not finite, it is abundant, there are challenges, there's always more for each of us on an individual basis and in our organizations and the world. So this sort of profound optimism based in realism. What will it take to get there? But we know there is a there to get to.
Yes.
And if I can share an anecdote, I think when it really struck me is I'm a scuba diver. And I remember going on a trip many years ago to North KZN, south of Mozambique. And I was determined on that trip to swim with dolphins. It was something I hadn't done. And I was like, I'm going to swim with dolphins.
And it was supposed to happen.
That was supposed to happen, exactly. So the blinders, the focus, the objectives, the intention, launched in the morning, no dolphins. And this is a place where pods of dolphins pass every day. Launch in the afternoon, no dolphins. Launch the next morning, no dolphins. Launch in the afternoon, no dolphins. So literally losing hope, despondent.
Yes.
We were on that boat. We were in a bay and we thought, let's take our kit off. We're here. We'll go around the next corner.
Yes.
Lost all hope. And then, no, not dolphins, but a ginormous whale shark. Now, whale shark are actually herbivores, so they're not scary, but they're 14 feet minimum. These gentle giants that don't even look like they're moving. So it was an absolute treat. Quickly put on our gear, was able to snorkel next to this whale shark. And I was in a different world completely. Somebody got a photograph and you can just see this little human next to this huge.
Yes.
And it really stayed with me because it really was such an embodiment of there is always more.
Yeah.
So it might not be exactly the form that you intended, but it could be better and bigger and actually more in line with what I wanted to experience.
Definitely. Love it. There's always more. There's abundance out there. And I like how you talk about there's optimism, but it is founded in realism, right? It's not a sense of delusion, I guess, to a certain extent.
Yes. And I think that's where I think people prevent themselves thriving, because if we think of scenarios, for example, working with scenarios, what was interesting to me about working with scenarios is that so much analysis goes into what's the current dynamic. And if you pull this string out, where will it go? If you pull that string out, where will it go? And you almost extrapolate potential plausible futures. But where people really battle in these conversations is they want to go, I wish it were there. I don't want it to be there. And we almost don't then engage. But the reality is it could be there. True. So then we can't thrive because we're in this blinded world of wishful thinking, or actually not facing the reality. So we can't address what's there in order to create the future we do want.
We do desire, right? Yeah. And I guess the rigidity around what I'm most comfortable with is that. And I would rather work towards that, as opposed to, if I stay in the expansiveness and the curiosity of the other plausible ones, I could probably work towards those as well.
And that might mean wading through things you don't like in order, you know, whether it's limiting beliefs or whether it's a challenging environment or something you need to change or shift in order to see where you can shift the boundaries and create something different.
True. When has there been a time, though, where it didn't feel like there's more? It didn't feel...
Yes. Oh, my word. So I would have to say, personally, COVID. COVID for me was not an experience of, wow, I can now make sourdough bread and learn a new hobby and have time at home. For me, it was very much being a entrepreneur and different businesses that were at that stage very much in person, and a single mom and caring for my mom. And just this world changed, and surprisingly for me, I then experienced burnout, crash and burnout. And literally couldn't get out of bed one day, which was not how I've lived my life at all. So it was a real shock, actually, to go, what is this? What is this? And I've worked a lot with liminality and working through change and creating new. It's my world and my work. So it was a big shock to hit a wall and go, what does this mean now in terms of what's possible, what's plausible, what I want, reconnecting with actually what is important to me and why do I do what I do. So it was a moment there where it took some time to go, what do I need to change to actually make this a thriving world again for me and my family.
And I'm interested in that, in the how do you get around it? What work do you do that helps you? But just to bring our audience with us, when you talk about things like liminality and all of that, what does that mean? And then step into the what work did you do then to help you out of that space?
So liminality actually comes from a social anthropological term where you're not in an old identity and you go through a rite of passage or a change to get to a new identity. So often equated to you an adolescent becoming an adult, but in the world of work and as a leader, we often go through these internal identity changes where we go, now I'm a leader, what does that mean? How do I want to embody the identity? But we also need to let go of being the expert or being the go-to person or to step into a different identity.
And that's a tough space, right?
Exactly.
For people,
So there's this transition of like being on a bridge where you're not in the old end, but you can't go back to that, and you're not yet in the new part. So it's sort of literally in liminality. So then stepping into that can be a very creative space to explore and create and be playful, actually, and have multiple futures for yourself. So it was a stage for me, firstly physical well-being, of actually my nervous system was completely over-regulated. And understanding later on that burnout was actually linked also to ADHD, which is a late diagnosis, and only understanding in retrospect that burnout is very real from having an over-stimulated nervous system for so long. And so physically it was really more about finding new habits and patterns and taking care of that. And then it was also literally of saying, all right, let me look for myself, where would I like to be playing in this world and contributing. So a bit of playfulness, and I tried some things online, I brought together some leaders and said, let's learn in complexities. So we're actually learning those skills as we're in it.
As you're going.
How do we read this complexity? How do we respond to it? How do we? So that was very exciting to really explore that in depth, and then bring that into more channels of teaching, and really a real commitment to coaching and working with organizations to create sustainable systems that are flexible and responsive and inclusive of everybody, so that everybody has a place to thrive, actually. Yeah. So it almost reconnected me with the purpose around that work.
Lovely.
Yeah.
There's always more.
And it did give me the momentum to finish my PhD. So for all of those of you who are in the liminality of a PhD, this almost said, okay, exactly, like see it through, no matter that messiness of in the middle, like it's worth it, but you've got to go through it to do it. And lots of support of people saying the best PhD is a finished PhD. So it did also give me that space.
Yes. I like it. I like the looking at it as a space to be playful and creative, because I think, you know, you hear the words burnout and all you see is a negative, you know, and maybe a dark place, right? But what I'm hearing from you is, even in that moment, it's possible to tap into our creative, our light side, a sense of ease. And maybe a way of doing that, which is what you did, is opening up to what can I learn from this process? Because you then said, yes, it's messy, and it's messy for most of us, but can we commune around this thing?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And that sense of community and having a circle where everybody's going, we don't know where it's going, what it means, let's think together, sharing resources and what do we know already. And actually it almost reminded us of our innate wisdom of in praxis, like we're in this situation we talk about, because everyone, a complex world, well, we're in it. What is it? What's coming up? We don't know when this will end. We don't know what it means. So yeah, definitely to find that way of communing and sharing that experience, that's how. And quite frankly, when you feel like you've hit rock bottom, the only way to look is up and go, okay, I've lost it all. Where do I can I play more easily? Where do I what do I have innately already that I can build on? What am I interested in? What gives me energy? You know, what gives me energy? And it still gives me energy to create a better world for my daughter. You know, very much on all levels. And if that's what
gets you going, then for that time, it's what you hang on to, right? So what you're sharing aligns so much with what we've learned from other invitees onto the platform, and even some of our research that to thrive, learning and development has to be a big part of it, right? And being intentional about it, even in tough situations. I think it's nice to hear you also affirming that even in that tough moment, it worked for you as an individual, as an entrepreneur, as a leader also in the space, but that you also invited other people into the space of seeing together and also discovering together that wisdom that you're talking about, because it's there, right?
Exactly. And we lose with all the noise and the busyness and the deadlines, we lose track of just pausing and saying, what do I have innately already as a strength, as a capacity, as a way of seeing the world, as a way of thinking? And we forget it adds value sometimes. And as women too, we sometimes undermine our strengths, you know, that are unique to all of us. So just to have a place to reconnect with that. Which I think we should all do, right? We don't find those moments enough just to affirm, actually, what I have adds value. And it adds value to speak up, it adds value to contribute, it adds value to learn.
So how do we create spaces and places where more of that can happen, Sarah? Because in introducing you, I said you lead conversations around how to build inclusive spaces, right? Part of it is around your work around the neurodiversity. So how? And I guess here, start talking to those who need to be championing this.
Yes.
Whether it's the leaders, whether it's the people who are managing people, leading human capital. It's not easy to get it right. But again, if there's more, if there's many plausible futures, it means it can be done. Yeah, how do we go about it?
If we think about the optimism and imagination, curiosity, we start at an individual level. So if you think, when have I most felt like I'm thriving, like I'm contributing, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm adding value, what I'm doing is meaningful. So if we start from that premise, like imagine everybody could be in that space. Like I'm in a space of just flourishing, which doesn't mean it's not hard or you don't get tired or there's these challenges, but just that I can go home and go, I added value today. I made a difference, what I did, no matter where you are in the organization. I think it starts with that philosophical assumption that that's what we want. And that means I need to feel like I belong and that I'm seen.
Sure.
So then you look at, who do I work with? Do they see me and include me? And do I feel like I belong here? Like I go, this is my place. Like when I first, when I'm engaging with GIBS, I go, this is my place somehow, which I just feel.
Yes.
So that's what then we look at, does my manager see my strengths? Or have I been pigeonholed for something I did a long time ago, or a perception, or is that manager really seeing what I bring? Am I showing that? Am I given that opportunity?
Am I aware enough to be able to show it, though, right?
Yes, that too. Yeah. And then do we have a system that supports that from the whole cycle of human capital, attraction, development, culture, kind of future, that there's a purpose, that there's a good place to work. So I think it's an interplay of the individual and the systemic change. I think when it's individualized, then I think it gets too much pressure on the individual. But if it's only the systemic, then the individual almost abdicates responsibility. Like, why aren't you making me happy? So it's interesting to see sometimes in the companies that are over-resourced and invest so much in their people, there's almost an attitude of, but why haven't you made me happy?
Exactly.
It's externalized. Like, when's the next campaign or the next whatever round of initiatives.
True.
But if it's only on the individual, then I think it's too burdensome. So I think it's a fine balance,
right?
And then so the approach of neurodiversity is that the different profiles of neurodiversity bring great strengths. So the entrepreneurial, 40% ADHD, which means there's big picture thinking, higher risk taking, spontaneity, driven by novelty, wants to create, really systemic thinkers, which every firm needs, actually.
Definitely,
so we're teaching corporate entrepreneurship, but actually they're people that have a natural strength. So how do we bring that in terms of the individual inclusion, but also systemic? On the spectrum, there's a natural strength of, so there's a higher propensity for autism in IT or other engineering, or where there's dealing with lots of data, critical thinking, being able to deep dive. Maybe there's a less strength in social engagements or executive functioning. But if you're working with the strengths, then you're really allowing people to bring, and some firms are really actively trying to attract that talent because of that unique strength. So for me,
who's getting it right?
Well, you know what? I want us more in the global south to have more research, to have more cases, to have more. At the moment, it's very individualized stories. So I'm calling it the Me Too movement of neurodiversity. So I'll be talking about it, and then it breaks. Somebody will go, Me Too. Or they'll, in the LinkedIn, they'll put under not the public profile, but under the private, Me Too. I'm like, we need to normalize the conversation of what are the strengths we bring, what are the challenges, and how do we find that balance together? So at the moment, the examples are coming from Ernst & Young, for example, that has set up 23 centers of excellence around neurodiversity and attracts neurodiverse talent and reporting huge benefits. It's the Wells Fargo or the IBM or the Deloitte or the bigger firms globally, and that's another debate. But we could come back to the whole global debate around DEI, but we're needing more here. So at the moment, that what I'm seeing is very individualized responses, as opposed to if somebody discloses, then we'll address it. But actually, there's a lot more opportunity to work with it in organizations. Also, because our Employment Equity Amendment Act increases
definition has shifted,
right? And the targets of 3%. So neurodiversity, so there are drivers that are saying, let's start with disclosure, safe disclosure. Let's start
Yes,
then with
yes.
looking, do we have our reasonable accommodations?
Yes.
Not to be kind, but because we
It makes
actually,
sense to
they
do
benefit
it.
everybody
Correct.
to have a
correct.
good place to work and be
Yes.
employer of choice.
Yeah.
And then are we then building it into our culture? We're actually diversity that is robust. So it's robust. We're bringing different thinking, critical thinking. It's not just a warm, safe, fuzzy place. It's like actually we've got a shared purpose and we need to all apply our minds to it.
Yeah. Sure. Sarah, you said a lot. I joked before we were recording that we might feel like this is like part 1 and we might need to do a part 2. But thank you for inviting us into the conversation around creating spaces that are inclusive and allow everybody to thrive, and especially around that neurodiversity conversation. Also highlighting that it can work, that there are global organizations that are already practically doing this. And so we can build our own cases if we think, as you say, there's individual intervention, and that's important, and we need to do that. But there's also the consideration around the systemic intervention, and it's a both end, right? And we need to drive that, I guess, in our leadership conversations, leadership engagements, and with our human capital teams, thinking much more creatively around that. I think we're starting a good movement, right?
Yes.
That will contribute to the thriving conversation, because we've started. You already said you arrived to GIBS and there's something that said, I belong here. So we've started the conversation, but we're expanding it, right?
Yes.
In terms of everybody feeling included, including those that are neurodiverse, and us celebrating those strengths to the benefit of the organization. Sarah, thank you. I think we're not starting a movement, maybe building onto the movement, where we've been looking at building more inclusive environments. But we're amplifying the conversation around neurodiversity, which is important, because if we look at it from a strengths perspective, there is so much that individuals can gain, teams can gain, organizations can gain. You earlier said, actually, our nation. And so I think Africa can gain a lot with a perspective of more. Africa can gain a lot when they are at ease with the idea of exploring during complexity and saying, what can I learn from this? And how can we contribute to refining each other and harnessing wisdom together? I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
There you are, thriving community. We hope that you will go out there and see the world as a place of abundance, a place of more, a place of plausible futures, which means you can actually create the future you desire. Look forward to you joining us again for another episode of Thriving. And as usual, if you want to give us any feedback, it is thriving@gibs.co.za.